Thank you, Ceann Corlin. I welcome the fact that Dáil has been allowed to hold the debate on a matter of grave public importance. Nothing is more important to the work we are elected to do than ensuring that all officers of the state work to protect the public and promote justice for all. Throughout history, a core foundation of democracy has been a willingness to question those who are given the power to administer justice. There is no police force in the world that is completely free from problems, and there never will be. And I have no doubt that a significant reason why Ireland is now one of the world's older democracies has been the success of An Garda Siochana. They have built and maintained public confidence through the most challenging of situations, in particular when faced with a private army which viewed itself as the real state and the ongoing struggle against lawless gangs who seek to terrorise too many communities. It's a tribute to the Gardaí that throughout the country people are protesting against the government's policy of downgrading the links between Gardaí and the communities they serve. We should all reject absolutely the idea that to raise concerns is in any way questioning the work of the force as a whole, which the Minister did in the initial part of his speech again today. When serious questions arise, we as public representatives and the government we elect have a duty to ensure that they are comprehensively and objectively investigated. In fact, the only way of protecting the standing of the force is to have public trust that failings are actively being sought and dealt with. We have a duty to act in such a way as to encourage people with evidence of wrongdoing to come forward. Over the years, we've all learned that there are no institutions beyond criticism, scrutiny and accountability, and that what is a healthy democracy, and that's what a healthy democracy represents. In this House, we've also learned that setting up an independent inquiry can actually assist with maintaining confidence in the justice system. The basic background to this debate is that serious questions have arisen on a number of fronts, and there's no faith that they've been handled properly. And that is the bottom line. There is no faith that they've been handled properly. The announcement yesterday of a review of one aspect of the controversy comes 2 years on from the issues being raised, and after weeks of delay and denial. This is the government that, when elected 3 years ago, promised that as part of its claimed democratic revolution, it would value, encourage, and protect whistleblowers. However, the evidence available to us is that efforts have been made at various levels to dampen, if not squash, allegations that were made about some past activities within the Gardaí. Other matters concerning the possible bugging of GSOC and the dismissal of the Garda confidential recipient are absolutely linked to the whistleblower allegations, because they form a central part of how the government is undermining public trust in a vital part of the administration of justice. Over recent weeks, the Minister for Justice has continuously failed to meet the basic test of handling serious allegations effectively. His response and the responses of his colleagues have been to trying to end the controversy rather than deal with it. The ongoing campaign to try and blame the last government is as cynical as it is pathetic. The number of Fine Gael deputies attacking the messenger suggests that the party is coordinating this effort. And these attempts to distract from the serious allegations made have not worked and will not work. And you know, Minister, that Minister Ahern, when he was there, never got a dossier that you got. He never got that dossier. You did, he didn't. The situations are not comparable in any shape or form, but yet you want to go down the road of distraction. And after a week's silence, Minister Shatter, you gave a few exclusive comments to one journalist last night, signalling that you were going to go on the attack today, and that you had been trawling for evidence to support him. You've been trawling all week throughout the department. Now, only the most gullible will have listened to you this morning and accepted that you've tried to give a balanced and fair view of the record. You have, Minister, a proven track record of selective quotations, and you've been driven constantly by an absolute obsessive need to justify yourself. There's no reason whatsoever to believe that you have given us a full and balanced picture of what is in your department files. And while you believe that you have been smeared because others have had the nerve to question you, you should remember that the Taoiseach has explicitly said that I have handled this matter responsibly. That's what the Taoiseach has said. And you also have to face the inconvenient fact that while today you have announced that the Taoiseach has reviewed the matter, and you've announced that you've reviewed the matter and you found yourself to be right in everything you've done. Cabinet yesterday actually said the matter needs to be reviewed externally. That's a very significant point, Minister. That's the view of Cabinet, and that's the view in particular of the Taoiseach, having read the dossier. Or is the Minister expecting us to believe that when the Taoiseach and Taoiseach refer to the issues involved in the dossier as grave, when they say they cannot make up their mind who to believe, or when they say the matter needs external review and possibly an investigation, they're doing this because they think everything is fine? There is substantive evidence that there's an ongoing and profound problem in how allegations of improper behaviour in the Gardaí are handled. A culture of deep suspicion has developed, meaning that the relationships between the Minister, the Commissioner, the Office of the Confidential Recipient and the Garda Síochána Ombudsman Commission are at best dysfunctional, and at worst actively subverting the goal of dealing with allegations of improper behaviour. Minister Shatter and the Commissioner have admitted that these relations are poor. An atmosphere that leads GSOC to hire a United Kingdom company to screen their offices for bugs is one in which the public interest is not being served. The paperwork around this review is now being reviewed by a former High Court judge, in spite of the fact that Minister Shatter did his level best to dismiss these concerns out of hand. It remains a disgrace that Minister Shatter refused to consult the Oireachtas on the terms of the review, and that Justice Cook is not being allowed to check evidence. It's now a consistent tactic of this government that when a minister is caught in a crisis, something which is becoming more and more frequent, the first priority is to manage the media rather than the issue. And we've seen this enforced during the past few weeks. Before today, the minister was unavailable to the public, but active behind the scenes briefing was non-stop. While the fact that this debate is being held is welcome, we have not been supplied with any of the documents which the minister has used to try to undermine the allegations and attack others. If the minister had meant this to be a genuine effort to allow questioning, he would have circulated the relevant reports, especially the report of the Garda Inspectorate, and he would have supplied a briefing to the opposition. He might also have provided access to the files he's used to formulate today's attack, but of course he hasn't. And why would he allow anyone the chance to answer back? From early yesterday evening, the government was briefing the media that Minister Shatter was going to come in here all guns blazing, and that he had the evidence to back himself up. If he is so secure in this, why has he failed to let anyone else see the evidence? Why has he yet again insisted on trying to deny a fair debate? For 3 years, Minister Shatter has adopted the strategy that attack is the only form of defence. He has consistently refused to even contemplate the idea that he might be wrong, and has repeatedly impugned the integrity of any deputy, senator, journalist or member of the public who has challenged him. In recent days, his government colleagues have chosen to circle the wagons around him by hyping his record and claiming that he's always reasonable. Yet he does not recognise the legitimacy of any criticism. When challenged, he's sometimes snide, frequently partisan and always dismissive. Within weeks of his appointment, he started, as he meant to go on, by withholding from the Dáil essential information about the progress of the Smithwick Tribunal. While pushing through a guillotined bill to limit the time for the tribunal's work, the minister withheld essential correspondence with Judge Smithwick. And when it was exposed, he attacked anyone who questioned him. Crucially, he did exactly the same thing when he appointed his friend and donor as Garda confidential recipient nearly 3 years ago. And Minister, your speech this morning is absolutely remarkable in relation to your silence about that entire episode and the entire situation pertaining to the confidential recipient. You went so far as at the time to say that it was despicable for anyone to question whether the appointment was appropriate. In 2011, it was put to the minister that appointing a friend and donor meant that the confidential recipient might not be able to act fully independently of the minister, and that at very least his performance of the role would be influenced by his connection with the minister. And these fears have been fully realised, Minister. Fully realised. The minister's firing of Mr Connolly has shown that he is willing to lay down his friends to protect himself. It's absolutely not true that the transcript which Deputy Wallace and I brought to the public's attention clears the minister. By the way, your confidential recipient absolutely stated to Mr McCabe and Maurice McCabe that he believed him fully when he handed the stuff and the material to you. And what it confirms again and again is that Mr Connolly and the minister were in regular contact about the allegations. It includes a direct statement by the Minister's friend and donor that he, the Minister, might not be acting fully independently of the Commissioner. It appears from the statement Minister Shatter released from Greece and answered no questions about that Mr Connolly was fired because he told the whistleblower, quote, "If Shatter thinks you're screwing him, you're finished," unquote. Now, this has been described by various government sources as an outrageous reflection on Minister Shatter making Mr Connolly's departure inevitable. At no stage was Mr Connolly given the opportunity to give his side of the story. And Mr Connolly is quoted in the transcript, which is clearly authentic, as saying to the Garda Micheál, quote, "Shatter would have read your report in detail. I know he did. He communicated with me and he will have read all of your exhibits," which I actually labelled them numbered 1 to 9 in the actual order they were highlighted, so he did know. And you know, I redacted. The only thing I redacted was your name. Alan studied everything. In fact, I know he did, unquote. Before today, the Minister's only comment about the transcript was on the February the 6th, before he saw it. And the bottom line, when you look at that dossier, Minister, the cases jump out at you. And there's no point in creating a big smoke screen about the 10 dossiers and so on like that. And when I mentioned that I met the family, yes, I met the mother. I met the mother of Sylvia Rose Kelly, and I met the sisters and the brother. They were told nothing, Minister, about anything. And they certainly weren't told about the totality and the sequencing of that entire episode, from the abduction and savage beating of Mary Lynch, on to the abduction of a 5-year-old child in Dundrum, and then on to the savage murder of Sylvia Roach Kelly. Now, I'd put it to you, I accept it's a subjective judgment. Did you ask anything about what happened? About the sequence? Yes, I've just sent it to the Taoiseach. That case...
Sorry, would you please...
That case, we've had situations like this before. That's what led to the Morris Tribunal. It's events like that. That's what led to the previous Minister Hearn doing the Noel Keegan inquiry. It's not unprecedented for ministers when they see material of this gravity and of this kind going beyond and doing something exceptional in terms of setting up an independent inquiry to follow and get full answers. You've mentioned here briefly about Mary Lynch's case being held in the district court, and you've reduced it to the level of I'm all for, you know, I believe in supportive measures for victims. That's not about just victims alone, important that as it is. The central point. Was it discussed by the... And the central point, no, it wasn't, Minister Noonan. Okay? And stop that nonsense.
Without interruption. Sorry.
It's too serious for that now. And quite frankly...
Sorry, please.
Quite frankly, my remit, I'm not worried.
I'd appreciate if you get on with your statement without...
My point is, when I'm presented with this, and I was presented with this for the first time, it raised very serious issues. And before Minister Noonan tried to distract me, the core question here is, did failings ultimately lead to the murder to do or put it? But that's what the same is. I didn't want to go into the detail here today, but I had all the cases, and that's why the Taoiseach says they're brave. A young woman who was savagely beaten getting €150, 50 each from the attackers. A man who was savagely beaten, and the case wasn't input in a pulse for 9 months. That's the point, Minister. Like, we can dress up, we can have smoke screens all we like. It's about the quality of the internal investigations that is at stake here. And it's not unprecedented that in the past they've been proven to be very, in many cases, we've had the Morris Tribunal. So it's not beyond anybody's compass or anyone's belief that things could have gone wrong here. And the cases are very, very grave. And I sent them to the Taoiseach rather than going down a different route and put them all out into the public domain, which would have been wrong and which would have been prejudicial to the rights and entitlements of other people who are mentioned in the dossier. And I didn't do that, and I studiously avoided doing that. And that's why the Taoiseach has taken the decision that he has taken. And could I also say that in terms of your entire approach, Minister, like, we've witnessed you again that attacking people is your standard operating procedure. You are a minister who you still see nothing serious in how you used a confidential briefing from the Garda Commissioner to falsely attack a deputy for hypocrisy. You saw nothing wrong with that, and still don't. And this is a minister who can express disinterest in how information was leaked against another deputy to try to discredit her. I could go on, Minister. in terms of your own situation, so on like that, in terms of breath tests. I'm not going to go through all of that. But what we're dealing with here, Minister, is not an isolated example. This is not a consistent pattern of behaviour built up over 3 years. For Fine Gael to defend one of its own is not surprising. The length to which Labour is willing to accept this becomes more incredible by the day. If the contents of that transcript are serious enough for Mr Connolly to be fired, then they are more than serious enough for Minister Shatto's position to be equally untenable. All the transcript does is reveal how he's been operating. And a week on from his publication, not one single factual statement in it has been rebutted. To say, sure, I was going to get rid of the office anyway, is a ridiculous defence, especially as the Minister has been indifferent to the treatment of GSOC and its reports during his 3 years. The manner in which the Government and the Minister have established a review into the possible burning of GSOC again, or bugging, of GSOC again, suggests that he's prejudged the issue. Of course you did. He has sent Judge Cook documents which involve a conflict of evidence, but has provided him with no means of testing that conflict of evidence. While government TDs constantly refer to an investigation, it is nothing of the sort. The Minister has refused to consult on the terms of the review, even sending out spokesmen to ridicule the idea that he would let a Labour colleague oversee a statement. In his evidence to the Oversight Committee last week, he said that there's a conflict of technical evidence which he's not competent to judge, even though that is exactly what he's repeatedly done in trying to bury the entire controversy. Now as before, an inquiry which is allowed to interview people and seek evidence is the only way of comprehensively and finally dealing with the issue. The eagerness of some to use the fact that GSOC carried out the sweep for bugs to attack the Commission, to attack the Commission, to call for resignations and to threaten the continued withholding of access to basic Garda information is striking. This is something else the Minister and Government are silent on. The fact that GSOC's recommendations on misconduct cases are being ignored has been known for 2 years. The Minister has only now and under pressure shown any interest in. Protecting the independence and supporting the work of GSOC is an issue Fianna Fáil firmly believes is the correct thing to do. And Deputy Niall Collins has already published a bill to allow for the strengthening of GSOC, and we will be bringing it forward as a private member's bill. If the Government is sincere in its new position of showing concern, then it will support this legislation. In bringing the whistleblower allegations to the attention of the Taoiseach, I've been very careful not to make specific allegations against identifiable persons. In this, I've been very conscious of the fact that not all of the allegations made to the Morris Tribunal were sustained, and that we have an obligation to do what we can to allow people due process. Minister Howland addressed this issue well in his speech at the conclusion of Morris, when he said it was absurd to expect the Deputy to investigate allegations before seeking their investigation. I welcome the Taoiseach's acknowledgement of the appropriateness of how I've handled this matter, though the comments of some of his colleagues are partisan politics at its worst. Even though the Government has chosen to commence a review, and the Taoiseach has said he is willing to consider going much further, the approach of the Minister has again been to effectively rubbish the idea that there's anything to be concerned with. He has spent the last week reviewing files not open to others, and has come in here to declare that he's handled everything well and there's nothing to be concerned with. And then, if that's the case, why is there to be a review? Did the Government actually decide that because everything is fine it needs to start a review process? When the Taoiseach said yesterday that he doesn't know who to believe, how can this be translated? As the Minister has done into everyone believes me. That's the Minister's view, everyone believes me. I think the appointment of Sean Gearan yesterday is an acknowledgement that there's a legitimate reason for concern. Limiting his work to a review and placing on his shoulders the decision about a full investigation is wrong. I think his role should be to scope out the basis for such a full investigation. There is a sense, and I hope I'm wrong, and I discussed this with the Taoiseach yesterday, that there's two potential approaches here. One that it reeks of a search of a way out, or alternatively a genuine approach to establish a commission of investigation. I wish him well and hope that he's able to produce a substantive report and guide a future investigation. The allegations contained in the documents I've seen and the concerns which I've heard from a number of people, including Garda McCabe and the family of Sylvia Roach Kelly, are seriously enough and very grave that the only thing which will firmly deal with them is a full inquiry, and this will not change. A related issue is the repeated claim of the Minister that Garda McCabe refused to cooperate with the inquiry of Assistant Commissioner O'Mahony into his allegations about the handling of penalty points. For some reason still unclear, the Minister has chosen to specifically criticise and stand by his criticism of Garda McCabe. You went out of your way, Minister, to criticise him in the Dáil, and he has now spent a week trying to justify the criticism. And your speech was notable this morning. You just don't have it, do you, Minister? The humility to say sorry, that you got it wrong. Because it transpires that in this entire episode, you were the only person that accused Garda Maurice McCabe of not cooperating with Assistant Commissioner O'Mahony's report. Nobody else made that assertion. Assistant Commissioner O'Mahony didn't make that assertion. Nowhere is it to be found in his report. And if Sergeant McCabe had not cooperated or did not cooperate, he would have been subject to internal Garda disciplinary action. I think your behaviour on this one is appalling. And it brings to mind the comments of your confidential recipient, who said if Shatter thinks you're screwing him, he'll come after you. And Maurice McCabe has remarked to me that Oliver Connolly was telling the truth. The Minister Shatter did come after me. And it was 5 weeks after a complaint was made to SIPO. Why did you say he didn't cooperate? Why did you state something that is fundamentally untrue? And you know, Minister, that the Road Safety Authority, and the Cabinet referred the O'Mahony report to the Road Safety Authority, that executives in that authority told you, in meetings with you, that he was not approached and that he was not interviewed. And you argued, and you said, oh, he was. He wasn't, Minister. And you know that. No one from the investigation team in any shape or form contacted, texted, emailed Maurice McCabe in relation to coming forward from the inquiry. That's the bottom line. And the Road Safety Authority wrote to Minister Varadkar, because the Cabinet sent it to him, okay? And they wrote back to Varadkar saying, highlighting all the failings in the O'Mahony report. And what was the chief failing, Minister? Chief failing, the failure to actually interview the whistleblowers on it. So this isn't something that you weren't aware of. This is a live issue for about 6 months, but certainly from April, May of last year. Despite the whistleblower writing to the Taoiseach, and you wrote back to the Taoiseach, so you wrote back to the Taoiseach knowing he hadn't been interviewed and saying it was an operational matter. So you weren't going to get involved as to whether he would be interviewed or not. But then you go into the Dáil in October and you accuse the man of not having cooperated. Well, do you see the inconsistency of that, Minister? I mean, you knew he wasn't interviewed. You knew he was protesting about the fact that he wasn't interviewed and that he hadn't been called. And yet you go into the House and you accuse him in the public domain that he did not cooperate with an inquiry. And by doing it and the way you did it, you undermined his reputation, his character, his credibility. His credibility, Minister. And this is a government that's encouraging whistleblowers. You fundamentally undermined the man's credibility in the public domain. That's right. This guy isn't serious. He didn't even bother cooperating. That was the import of what you said.
Deliberately.
And not a word today.
Sorry, Deputy, would you please allow
and
Deputy Martin.
And remember, Minister, you would have also been conscious of the fact that the Controller and Auditor General had vindicated Maurice McCabe's issues in and around penalty points. And in terms of the outcome of the CNAG's report, the contrast between that and the Garda and the O'Mahony inquiry in terms of the outcomes couldn't be more stark. Yet you proceeded to make the allegations that you've made. And I have here a document that Maurice McCabe sent this morning. This is just his own summation. And I'm going to put it laid before the House for others, because I can't go through it all in the time that I have. And basically, he was a year trying to stop the practice of senior Garda officers terminating fixed charges illegally and so forth. But Assistant Commissioner O'Mahony or his team never contacted, interviewed, called, rang, texted, emailed, faxed, or visited Sergeant McCabe ever. That's from Maurice McCabe himself, and I'm putting that on the record. Some Gardaí in Sergeant McCabe's station in Mullingar were contacted and questioned regarding terminations they'd done. Yet they still didn't meet with him, the investigation team. Do you think you should apologise, Minister, for what you said? Do you think at a minimum you should withdraw what you said in relation to the whistleblower? Could you not just say, I was wrong, I made a mistake? And I think actually, Minister, you talked, in many ways you put the Minister or the Commissioner and others in the firing line, unnecessarily and in an unedifying way. so that we end up in some Jesuitical sort of interpretation about a direction in December of last year about this. It's crazy stuff, Minister. No need for that kind of behaviour. So retrospectively trying to justify trawling every record you could. Can I find an email? Can I find some letter that gets me off the hook from misleading the Dáil?
That's right.
That's what this was all about last week.
That's why he works hard.
And it ended up then on prime time on Monday night with a sergeant in the Garda force who happens to be a whistleblower having to issue a statement in contradiction of either briefings or statements from the Garda Commission. That should never have been allowed to happen. And the only reason we got to that stage, Minister, was to protect your hide and to give you some fig leaf to hang on to justify the statement you made last October. I don't know why you consistently cling to it. In your speech, you say you don't want to go any further with it, you want to dwell on it anymore. Of course we don't want to dwell on it anymore. But the man has a basic entitlement to his name. And he's a basic entitlement to the facts in relation to that issue being articulated clearly and so forth. And, you know, I would lay this before the House in whatever way I can. But, you know, Sergeant McCabe did meet with Minister Varadkar, and he voiced concerns to Minister Varadkar that he was not interviewed. And, you know, Commissioner Cannon and Commissioner Manny both spoke to the Public Accounts Committee on this, and it's on the record. And in fairness, Assistant Commissioner Manny admits at the PAC that he did not interview Sergeant McCabe. And despite you saying the opposite in terms of October 2013 and saying that he didn't cooperate and so on. So I think, you know, as I said, the Road Safety Authority complained to you, wrote to you, saying he hadn't been interviewed. And what was your response? I wrote to Minister Varadkar, and I presume Minister Varadkar shared that with you. And Sergeant McCabe has made it clear to me that he has 28 years service with a clean discipline record, and that he wants his name cleared, basically. He doesn't want that slur hanging around him, or that accusation that he did not cooperate with the Omani inquiry. And I think that should be lifted, Minister. You should do the honourable thing, and you should withdraw that. And he was not directed to cooperate with the inquiry either. I think the relevant direction that we've seen was clearly focused on stopping him from accessing the information in the matter he had used to make his initial complaint. I don't know, is it personal pride, Minister, or what, or some other unexplained reason, but I think you refuse to treat this issue in a detached or objective manner. The undeniable fact is that Garda McCabe was not interviewed as part of the investigation into an allegation he made. And for most people, objectively looking on, they find that extraordinary. And it was known to the Minister when he claimed, it was known to you when you claimed that he had failed to cooperate. And you're also aware, as I said earlier, that there was two bodies, the Controlling Auditor General and indeed the Road Safety Authority, who have expressed deep concerns about the financial and safety aspects of the case. And the whole way that was handled, Minister, was wrong, right up to the Public Accounts Committee hearing it and so on. But there's not a hint of acknowledgement from you in relation to that. I think if you continue to maintain the same approach, Minister, that you've shown today, there's every reason to doubt that this affair will come to an end. This lingering resistance to an independent inquiry, with the powers to get to the bottom of all elements of the different cases, appears as strong as ever, and it will not go away. And I think ultimately the only way to protect public faith in the administration of justice is as strong as ever. The need to vindicate the rights of victims and their families remains absolute. The need for the government to face up to their responsibilities in that regard is still unaddressed, and we will continue to pursue the only vehicle that we believe can independently, objectively and outside of the political domain deal with the very grave and serious accusations that have been made, and they are grave, and I've read through them. There's no sense of them being dealt with adequately in my view, or lessons learned, because that's the key for any investigation. And they're quite shocking in what they outline. And that is at the core of this. And I think the government should relent and move forward after Mr. Geardin's report with a commission of investigation. Thank you.